Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. In Myanmar, at least 16 people have been killed after security forces opened fire at demonstrators in Yangon and elsewhere. It comes just a few hours after the military said it will protect the people and strive for democracy by holding elections. So far, more than 320 people have been killed in protests since the February 1st coup. China has called on the UK to correct its mistakes after an exchange of sanctions. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in London said Beijing does not stir up trouble, but it's not afraid of trouble. Earlier, Britain joined the EU and the US in imposing curbs on China over alleged human rights abuses. Beijing responded by sanctioning several British politicians and academics. Iran and China are set to sign an important agreement on economic cooperation for the next 25 years. Iran's foreign ministry says the treaty also pertains to Tehran's participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. In an interview, spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said the pact will be signed during China's foreign minister Wang Yi's visit to Iran. Brazil has reported record high COVID-19 deaths in a single day yet again, as more than 3,600 lost their lives overnight. Here in Pakistan, the virus claimed 67 lives and infected nearly 4,500 people in the last 24 hours. Nationwide, the death toll has crossed 14,100. Globally, there are 2.7 million fatalities and more than 126 million cases. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. In Myanmar, at least 16 people have been killed after security forces opened fire at demonstrators in Yangon and elsewhere. It comes just a few hours after the military said it will protect the people and strive for democracy by holding elections. As Myanmar's military celebrates annual Armed Forces Day, deposed lawmakers say it is a day of shame for the army. Military leader General Min Aung Hlaing has reiterated a promise to hold elections, but without giving any time frame. Addressing the parade, he also welcomed the presence of Russian forces, saying Moscow is a true front. Meanwhile, protests continue against the coup in Myanmar as activists gather in the main city of Mandalay and towns in Karen State. So far, more than 320 people have been killed in protests since the February 1st coup. China has called on the UK to correct its mistakes after an exchange of sanctions. In a statement, the Chinese embassy in London said Beijing does not stir up trouble but is not afraid of trouble. It said China hopes the British side will take concrete actions for the sound development of bilateral relations. Earlier, Britain joined the EU and the US in imposing sanctions on China over alleged human rights abuses. Beijing responded by sanctioning several British politicians and academics. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden voiced concerns about the retaliatory action by China. Iran and China are set to sign an important agreement on economic cooperation for the next 25 years. Iran's foreign ministry says the treaty also pertains to Tehran's participation in the Belt and Road Initiative. In an interview, spokesperson Saeed Khatibzadeh said the document will be signed during China's foreign minister Wang Yi's visit to Iran. He said the document was also discussed in 2015 when the Chinese president visited Iran. He said relations between Iran and China are deep and have multiple dimensions. Earlier, Beijing also said Iran is the key country on the Belt and Road Initiative and one of the major oil exporters to China. Brazil has reported record high COVID-19 deaths yet again, as more than 3,600 people lost their lives overnight. Globally, there are 2.7 million fatalities and over 126 million cases. Details in the following report. As vaccine disparities in the poor and rich world grow, 181 UN member states voted for the political declaration on equitable global access to COVID-19 vaccines. This comes as the World Health Organization announced it will release a final report on virus origins in the next few days. In the U.S., the White House says the number of vaccine doses administered in a day has jumped by a record 3.38 million. But in Southern America, the situation is not so promising, as Brazil's outbreak spins out of control. The most populous state, Sao Paulo, registered more than half of the country's daily deaths.
It is a request I make to every Brazilian: wear the face mask. The government will work to obtain enough vaccines to immunize our population. We're importing oxygen trucks from Canada. We've made every effort to provide strategic supplies.
Over in Europe, Poland has broken its record of new confirmed infections for the third day in a row. The European Commission expressed optimism after the German court abruptly stopped the country from ratifying the $885 billion EU recovery fund. France has accused the UK of blackmail against EU, saying London is under pressure because it lacks doses for second vaccine shots. Paris has also tightened classroom closure protocols in the high-risk regions.
À partir de la semaine prochaine,
from next week on, for the 19 French departments that will henceforth be under enforced restrictions, we will close each class after the first case of contamination. It's a very important measure, and that will bear consequences of more classes closed. Of course, in the departments that we mentioned, that means a closing of a class as soon as the first case is detected, and that will apply for all school levels.
Over in Asia, Japan reported its highest daily cases since early February, less than a week after Tokyo lifted a state of emergency. Meanwhile, developing countries are scrambling to keep their inoculations on track after India abruptly restricted vaccine exports. Pakistan has registered 67 deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry reported over 4,400 new cases, the country's highest since June last year. The ministry said the nationwide death toll has reached 14,158. It said nearly 650,000 people contracted the virus so far, out of which over 593,000 have recovered. The ministry added the number of active cases has exceeded 42,000. It said nearly 3,000 patients remain critical. Meanwhile, the National Command and Operations Center is holding a meeting to discuss actions over the alarming rise in cases. North Korea says U.S. President Joe Biden has taken a wrong first step by criticizing Pyongyang's missile test. A Workers' Party official said the test was an act of self-defense against threats posed by South Korea. Central Committee Secretary Ri Pyong-chol said U.S. criticism revealed deep-seated hostility towards the North. In a statement, he expressed apprehension over Biden faulting the usual test fire as a violation of UN resolutions. Ri said Washington is provoking Pyongyang by branding it as a security threat. He warned Washington might face something unpleasant if it continues to make such remarks. The U.S. has blocked Venezuela at the World Trade Organization from proceeding with its dispute over Washington's sanctions. Earlier, Caracas requested the formation of a WTO panel to rule on whether U.S. curbs breach global trading rules. In a statement, a U.S. trade official called the request illegitimate. Adam Hodge said the administration of President Nicolas Maduro does not represent Venezuelans. He said Washington will reject any effort by Maduro to misuse the WTO to attack U.S. curbs aimed at restoring democracy. He said Peru, Brazil, and Colombia backed the U.S. position, while Cuba and Russia sided with Venezuela. Colombia says the car bomb explosion that injured 16 people in the country's southwest was a terrorist attack. In a televised address, President Ivan Duque said Bogota will continue to confront and pursue terrorism wherever it is. The car bomb attack rocked the rural Corinto district in the Cocua Governorate. 3 of the wounded are in critical condition. The blast also caused extensive damage to surrounding houses and businesses. Israeli forces have injured several Palestinians, including a child, in a crackdown on protesters in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian media says the Israeli army used stun grenades, rubber bullets and tear gas to break up the marches. It said the Palestinians were protesting against Israeli colonial settlements in villages across the occupied territories. Meanwhile, Israeli authorities handed over the body of a Palestinian man shot dead by settlers last month in Ramallah. Ukraine says Moscow-backed separatists have killed 4 of its soldiers in shelling in the east of the country. In a statement, the army said 2 others were injured after the Russian Federation violated the ceasefire again. The army says separatists targeted its position with mortars, automatic grenade launchers and machine guns. It said such moves were prohibited under the Minsk agreements. It said Ukraine has reported the actions of Russian forces to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. 3 Russian nuclear submarines have conducted torpedo firing from under the ice in the Arctic. The Russian Navy's commander-in-chief Nikolai Avmenov says the shooting was part of expedition Umka-21. The commander said the sophisticated maneuver was the first such in the history of the Russian Navy. The admiral added the submarine surfaced with a 300 meters radius and the ice they broke was 1.5 meters deep. The drill was held near Franz Josef Land archipelago in the Arctic Ocean. It was aimed at testing Russian military hardware in extreme weather conditions. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the UK, clashes during a protest have led police to make several arrests in Bristol. Thousands of Britons gathered against the government's police and crime bill. Demonstrators said the bill would give police new powers to restrict street protest. Police drove down the protesters while using dog units in the operation. Local Avon and Somerset police said protesters threw projectiles, including eggs and glass bottles, at officers. In a tweet, they said the police will not tolerate violent disorder. Police are investigating assaults on 40 officers and 1 member of the media. A French government inquiry says France is guilty in the 1994 genocide in Rwanda and was blind to genocide preparations. At least 800,000 people were killed when ethnic Hutu extremists massacred minority Tutsi group and moderate Hutus. In its report, the Commission blames the then French President François Mitterrand for a failure of policy towards Rwanda. It said for a long time France was involved with a regime that encouraged racist massacres. But the report said there was no evidence France was complicit in the killings. The Elisa Palace said it hopes the findings will mark an irreversible reconciliation process between France and Rwanda. Rwanda hailed the report as an important step towards a common understanding of France's role in the genocide. American children's book author BEVERLY CLEARY has died at the age of 104. She created the feisty characters of Ramona Quimby and Henry Huggins. In a statement, her publisher, HarperCollins, said Clary passed away at her home in Carmel, California. No cause of her death was given. Her first book, Henry Huggins, was published in 1950, immediately setting a standard for realistic children's fiction. Clary wrote more than 40 books, with the last one penned in 1999. She is survived by 2 children, Malcolm and Marianne. Argentinian superstar Lionel Messi is a source of joy for football fans worldwide. So it is not so surprising to see his lookalike in Egypt, attracting children at an orphanage in the city of Zagazig. This report will tell you more. Islam Bhata has been using his resemblance to Barca footballer Lionel Messi for a good purpose. Seeing the excitement his presence causes at events, Bhata is happy to wear a Barcelona shirt and take part in a game or two. The children at the orphanage swarm around him with delight.
This happiness is in one's heart. When I came to the orphanage, I felt an incomparable happiness. And the kids' happiness with the resemblance between me and Messi is indescribable. When you make someone happy, God rewards you. I wanted to share this happiness with them.
Muhammad Al Sayed, the director of orphanage, says Bhata's visit gives children a morale boost.
We were happy to receive Mr. Islam today. He is Messi's lookalike. He is Messi of Al Sharqiya, not Messi of Barcelona. It gave a moral boost to the children. These visits help us to develop the children and discover their talents so that we can develop them. Our mission is to rehabilitate them and integrate them in the society.
Bhata dreams of becoming an actor, and what's a better star to that than portraying the biggest name in the footballing world? The art scene is slowly coming back to life in the Colombian capital, Bogota, after nearly a year of COVID-19 related restrictions. The curtains have risen on a new musical on the life of legendary Mexican singer Chavela Vargas. More in this report. More than ecstatic, theatergoers flocked to Bogota's Movie Star Arena to see the musical about the life of Chavela Vargas. The legendary singer is known for interpretation of traditional rancheras such as La Luna and Paloma Negra. Director Manuel Jose Alvarez says they had to overcome several challenges, but are excited to bring live performance back to the audience.
We're very happy. We took on this challenge in the middle of the pandemic and it was a complicated challenge. We had to stop twice. We had to postpone the premiere that was originally set for the end of December. It was postponed to the end of January. Then we closed twice. And after that, it was postponed until now. So we hope that the audience once again vibrates with music, with theater, with dance, that they feel and they receive that energy the actors transmit to the audience and the public transmits back to the actors.
The musical traces the life of the Bohemian artist through 3 stages. Audience members say they are rejoicing the opportunity to enjoy some music.
You can imagine my complete happiness basically because we've been waiting too long to enjoy one of these shows and the live sound. So for me, I'm rejoicing fully to be able to be here and enjoy the night. The music of Chavela, I think it's spectacular that we return to this.
The musical was written by a Mexican screenwriter, Victor Vasquez, with the main character portrayed by Ana Sofia Gonzalez as a child. Highlights include her most iconic songs including Macarena, Volver Volver, and El Rey. In cricket, England beat India by 6 wickets in the second one-day international to live in a 3-match series 1-1. Johnny Bairstow was declared player of the match for his heroics with the bat. India set a 337-run target after being put into bat first. Kannur Lokesh Rahul top scored with 108 runs, while Rizab Pant added a hard-hitting 77. In reply, England made a firm start and lost their first wicket only after 110 runs. Bairstow added 124 runs, while Ben Stokes missed out on a century and got out for 99. The third and final match of the series will be played in Pune on the 28th of March. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.